I'd like to get your thoughts on a widespread problem in the world of estate planning, and that's the failure of most parents to prepare the next generation for the inheritance coming their way. In particular, if the estate includes a family business, most parents fail to do business succession planning to plan for who will run the business on the day when, not if, the founder is no longer there to run it. The kids aren't prepared.
I probably observed as many, just because of my age and to some extent because of things like the giving pledges, I probably observed as many, particularly wealthy families, the problems, and they get very particular to the family. And in my family, I do not sign a will until my 3 children have read it, understand it, and made suggestions. Now, my children are in their 60s, and that would not have been a great success if I'd done the same thing at their 20s. It depends on the family. It depends on how the kids feel about each other. There's all kinds of things. Depends on the kind of business you have. So there's 1,000 variables. But I do think that if the children are grown, and when the will is read to them, it's the first they've heard about what the deceased thought about things, the parents have made a terrible mistake. And people, well, I've run into all kinds of situations, and some people don't tell their children anything, and some of them try and get them to bend to their will by using their own personal will. They make a million mistakes, and that's one you don't get to correct. Certainly in Charlie's had a lot of experience too.
Well, at Berkshire, we have a simple problem of estate planning. Just hold the goddamn stock.
Well, but that doesn't fit everybody, Charlie. I mean,
No, it only fits 95%.
I don't think it necessarily. I don't know necessarily whether if you have billions of dollars, you want to leave it to all your children. I mean, that's something.
Well, that's another question. But if you're going to place it somewhere, I just as soon as Berkshire stock.
Yeah. Oh, you're solving the investment problem for them, but you've got the personal problem of the fact that when they were 4, one of the kids pulled the other kid's cat's tail or something like that. I mean, you're dealing with human beings, and the biggest thing you want is you want your children to get along. I mean, you want that all through your life. Yeah. And the estate isn't the only place where you can mess that up, but it's a place where it's a very easy. I mean, I know a number of cases where the people did not know what was in the will, where there were huge sums involved, and within about 15 minutes, each one of them had a lawyer, and they don't get along since. I mean, it's important to handle it right, and it's important if you want your kids to have a certain values. It's important that you live those values. It's important that you talk about it to them, or they're learning from you from the day they're born what you're really like. And don't think that a cleverly drawn will substitute for your own behavior in teaching your kids the values you hope that they will have. And then your will should be in conjunction with that. It should start expressing it, and they grow older, and then they learn to pass along their values in connection with the size of the state. If there's family farms, it's one thing. If it's a bunch of marketable securities, it's something else. But I know of one instance by a particularly rich fellow that once a year he'd get his kids together and have a dinner and do all kinds of things to get them to sign their income tax returns in blank, because he didn't want them to know how much money they had and everything. Well, if that isn't going to work. I mean, I don't know what necessarily would have worked with him, but if you want, but Charlie and I have said it, if you want to figure out how you want to live your life, you write your obituary and reverse engineer it. I mean, and Paul Andrews, incidentally, who you mentioned at TTI, lived as great a life as anybody I've known. And he thought about these problems, and he came to me. He was 61, I think, had all the money way beyond what he needed. Didn't care about it. He'd like to give it to people. He had all kinds of good things he wanted to do. And he said, for a year, I've been worried about my business, TTI. And he said, I've got all the money I need. The family's got all the money that I need. But what do I do with the business? These people have helped me throughout my life. And he says, I could sell it to a competitor. If I sold it to a competitor, they'd fire my people and keep their people when they put it together. And if I sell it to a private equity firm or something, they'll be figuring their exit strategy as they sign the papers. And he said, oh, I've been thinking about it a year. And he said, it isn't that you're such a great guy. He says, it's just you're the only one left. And we bought it, and we lived happily ever after. And that was a man that knew what life was about.